So there's always a loaf of bread hanging around in my kitchen, I've found over the last few months, and I always kind of run out of things to do with it. So today's special is French bread. And I'm gonna show you 2 awesome recipes to either use up your old bread or go out to the store and buy some fresh loaves. We're gonna be making French bread pizza, which is essentially garlic bread on steroids. And then I'm gonna be showing you how to make an amazing panzanella salad. So let's get started. So we are gonna take this loaf of French bread, and this is one of the softer ones. They do sell sometimes the baguettes that are really probably more authentic and a bit crunchier in the crust. You could totally use that in this recipe. You could use ciabatta, use whatever you have. The softer, the better. So I'm gonna cut this crosswise into 2 pieces, and then I'm gonna eventually get 4 pieces out of it. So if you're using other types of bread like baguette or ciabatta, you might, just depending on the size of it, you might kind of have to jigger everything around from this point on. So what you want to do is grab a baking sheet lined with some aluminum foil. I'm going to pour a little bit of oil, olive oil on each piece, just enough to kind of get it nice and coated on the exterior. And this is going to help, once everything goes in the oven, this is going to help to kind of keep the exterior really crispy, similar to those frozen French bread pizzas. And now we're going to make our tomato sauce, which is super easy, but you can definitely use jarred tomato sauce, marinara sauce, if that's what you have on hand. But in the pantry, I'm going to grab some crushed tomatoes, some sugar, salt, and pepper, and a little bit of Italian seasoning. All right, I'm gonna clean up a little bit, and then I'm gonna go grab some melted butter, some granulated garlic, and we are going to assemble our pizzas. So this is just a few tablespoons of some butter with some granulated garlic powder, and we have some red pepper flakes and a little bit of salt in there. So now I'm going to evenly divide the butter amongst each piece of bread. Oh my goodness, it already smells good enough to eat. We are going to pop these guys in the oven for about 5 minutes until just beginning to brown. Time to put the toppings on. We have our no-cook sauce, we have some shredded mozzarella, some Parmesan cheese, and oh boy, some pepperoni. Okay, so I'm going to put the sauce over each piece. Again, divide it evenly. And then we're going to do the mozzarella, Parmesan, and then the pepperoni. So I actually might have a little bit of leftover sauce. So I'm going to pop it in the freezer and save it for the next time. Shredded mozzarella, and if you have the block at home, shred it yourself. That's a-okay. Get nice and generous here. And I'm not mad if a little bit falls on the side, because that's going to be some frico, and I'm going to eat that after. gilding the lily even further. Go big or go home. We're gonna add a little bit of grated Parmesan for flavor, okay? Now I've hit the salivating portion of the recipe. All right, add a little pepperoni, not pecorino, pepperoni. Oh man. Now I'm gonna put this in the oven until everything is nice and melty and bubbly and golden brown. These look unbelievable. Let me just show you what we're working with, people. Oh my goodness. Super spotty brown, pepperonis making little beautiful cups, which is always a good thing in my book. And we were just having a little conversation offline about serving size, portion size. So we were saying I'm gonna cut these in half and maybe eat a couple, Just gonna cut just like that. Oh my goodness. And now arrange them on a platter. This is a really great platter. Nice big rectangular. And unfortunately there isn't enough room for all the pieces, so you know what that means? I'm gonna have to take a bite. Just gonna have to do it. So the best way to do this on camera is probably not pick it up and eat it like this. But should I do that maybe? Maybe I'll just do that. Oh my God. What? It is so good. Wow. French bread pizza, you guys. And I had everything in my pantry. So stick around. I'm gonna show you how to make a panzanella salad using up some more French bread. So what's great about panzanella salad is it's a really good way to use up day-old bread, or in my case, usually it's a few days old bread, because the crunchier, the better. It's like built-in croutons. Who doesn't love a good crouton? So what you want to do is tear up some pieces of bread into like 1-inch pieces. And you're going to use the crust and the center of the bread. You want about 6 cups here because it's going to fill a rimmed baking sheet. And then what's going to happen is I'm going to put this in the oven to stale the bread. And in like 15-20 minutes, it becomes nice and golden brown and crunchy. But if you have day-old bread, or as I said earlier, bread that's been hanging out for a couple days, you could maybe shorten this cook time just until it's a little bit browned. All right, I'm gonna add a couple tablespoons of olive oil, some salt. And I have a oven preheated to 400 degrees. Oven rack is in the middle position. Just gonna toss this. Just make sure it's in a nice single layer, because sometimes it'll kind of like steam if there's bread underneath. So yeah, I'm gonna let these brown in the oven. They're gonna stale in there for about 15 minutes. So just keep an eye on them. And then about halfway through, I'm gonna go in and stir the bread. All right, so the bread is gonna cool right now, and I'm gonna move on to the tomatoes. Now the tomatoes are super great in this recipe because not only are they gonna be present in the salad, but what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna season them and drain them and use the juice as our vinaigrette. And I'm using a chef's knife only because it's super sharp, but usually I use a serrated. Just as long as it's sharp is really what matters the most. Okay, so I've got my little pack women, and I'm just going to, similar to an onion, but all the way through, I'm just gonna run my knife parallel to the board and go all the way through to make little tomato planks. All right, so I'm gonna use a bench scraper here just because it's a lot of little pieces. As I said, I'm gonna season the tomatoes right now. Give them a little toss. So the salt is gonna do two things. Number one, it's gonna season the tomatoes, but it's also gonna help to draw out some moisture and liquid that would normally turn the bread soggy in a panzanella salad. So I'm gonna put this aside. So I'm gonna grab the rest of my ingredients and then we'll move on to making more of the salad. Let's get a look-see at this. We've got the shallots, the cucumbers, and the seasoned tomatoes. So let me just push this to the side. And this is the tomato liquid gold that came out. And as I said, this is going to be part of the dressing. I'm also gonna use some red wine vinegar, some extra virgin olive oil, and a little bit of pepper to the tomato liquid. And the reason I'm not adding any more salt is because there's already some salt on the bread and then there's already salt on the tomatoes. And then I'm gonna whisk in some extra virgin olive oil. We're almost done. I'm gonna add all the vegetables. I'm gonna add those first because I feel like if I added the bread at this stage, it might kind of absorb some of the vinaigrette that I want to coat the vegetables first. Smells so good. All right. It's time to add the pan part of the zanella. Is that right?
That's somewhat right.
Sounds right, okay. Got our little beautiful serving bowl. And now, just toss it all together. So if you didn't have cucumbers or if you didn't have shallots and you have other things like you could add greens, you know, some baby arugula or torn lettuce. You could add maybe a little bit of garlic, or if you wanted to add some red onion, you could do that instead of the shallot, or scallions even. But the point is really, you have the technique now, so use what you have on hand. This looks so good. Now, basil is obviously great chopped, but I like to tear it because I think it looks a little bit, I don't know, more interesting. And you get a little bit more bite as opposed to just thin shreds. I think a little feta would be good on this, or some goat cheese, even torn mozzarella. I can't wait to dig into this. I hope you are just as excited as I am, and I hope you make both these recipes. You've got 2 new ways to use up your French bread at home. So thank you so much for watching. I will see you next time. If you have any questions, go ahead and leave them down in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, please like it and don't forget to subscribe.